go. A few more people joining us. Okay, so hello, I'm Becca, the Information Events Assistant in the Careers Department. Hopefully you know who I am because you've received lots of emails from me, and hopefully you kind of have a good grips of what's going on. But I've also got my colleague Maria with me from the Employer Engagement team. Maria, do you want to just say a quick hello?
Hello everyone, sorry I haven't got my camera on, but yeah, it's not working today. I work in the employee engagement team, working with lots of different employers who want to come on campus, so I worked alongside Rebecca for this fair.
Great, thanks Maria. So just wanted to have a quick overview because I know that everyone's probably booked onto lots of different fairs and they're all running in slightly different ways. So Built Environment Fair, it's from the 9th to the 11th of November. So we've got our webinars scheduled on the 9th and 10th, the majority, with the one-to-one calls on the 11th. So you'll only be participating in one webinar, and that's either a panel or it's a solo webinar, depending on the package that you picked and what you kind of said on your form. And then you have the option to do one-to-one calls, but I'll get a little bit more into that. So I don't know how familiar people are with Teams. We used to use another system called Blackboard, which was our internal virtual learning environment. We had some, Carly can't hear me. It might, I can't, I can't tell. You can hear me?
Yeah, so.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully that will get resolved. Maria, can you just keep an eye on the chat for me?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. So yeah, I'll get into the one-to-ones a little bit later on. But just in case people aren't familiar with Teams, I'll run through a few things quickly. So I've got a few slides just to kind of show. So at the top bar, you'll have the two little people, which is where you can see all the participants. You have the chat box, which is where we'll kind of encourage students to post their questions. And then you've got the reactions next to that. So you can get students to raise a hand, maybe if you have a quick poll or something, or like, have you heard of our organisation before? Are you in this year group? Are you looking for placement? That kind of thing. You can use that kind of function. Next along, we have the more actions, which is where you can kind of see meeting options and things like that. You can see your call health. If you're struggling with Wi-Fi, then you might want to keep your camera off while you present. It's not ideal. It's nice to see a face, but unfortunately some of the bandwidth isn't great, and keeping your video off can help at least get the audio across okay. And you can also pick things like background effects. If you're working from home and you're not a fan of your messy background, then it might be useful. You can also turn on live captions and things like that if that helps you kind of listen along to the other employers. Beyond that, whoops. You also have your microphone and camera on and off. So if you're speaking, then obviously it's good to have both on if you can. If you're watching someone else present, then I'd recommend just keeping them off, just a little bit less distracting. Sometimes background noise can creep through. I've got a dog at home, so she's not the best thing to hear when I'm in a meeting. And then kind of the most important thing, I think a lot of people will have slides. So just in terms of the format of how each of the sessions is going to work. So if you're part of a panel, there'll be 3 or 4 employers as part of the panel. So you'll all have 10 minutes each to present. We've kind of tried to keep the topics of the titles quite broad, so that we still want you to be able to cover, giving an introduction to your organisation, the opportunities that you have available, and maybe a little bit on your application process. I really appreciate that 10 minutes is not a very long time, and you've also got to kind of frame it maybe around kind of application tips or where your career might take you and things like this. So I would say try and get across the information that is individual to your organisation in those 10 minutes, and but leave we want to leave kind of 15-20 minutes at the end for questions where it can be kind of opened up a bit more, and maybe have kind of answers for more general questions that everyone can have an answer to. I'd also say that we like to keep the panels shorter as well, so that students still have questions and still want to book the one-to-one chats so that they can network with you the day after. If you're running a solo webinar, you've got a little bit more freedom, so you've got up to 45 minutes. We kind of suggest about 30 minutes to present and leaving up to 15 minutes for Q&A, if that's how you want to work it. We also suggest maybe having more than one person, so it might be good to have different perspectives. If you've got someone from HR that can give more of a perspective from a recruiter kind of side, maybe a recent graduate or placement student to talk about their experience of applying and their experience in the role so far. And if possible as well, someone maybe more senior, that could be a potential manager, so they can give kind of more of a technical side kind of view on working at that organisation. So depending on whether you're in one of those two is probably depending on what kind of things you're going to use on Teams. You can share your screen, you can use videos and things like this, but if you've only got 10 minutes, then sharing a video might not be a good use of your time. Having said that, a lot of people want to use slides. So on my slide, there's a red arrow pointing to the share content button. Apologies if anyone uses Teams and this is a little bit boring for you. But this is where you can kind of share your screen. So you'll have the option to share your screen, share your window, or if you're using PowerPoint and you already use Teams, you can use PowerPoint Live. If you share your screen and you have other things open, notifications and things like this will pop up. So in terms of privacy, it's not ideal, and the same thing can happen to a window, except a window, it will just kind of stick on that window and you can select from the list of things that you have open. If you're using PowerPoint Live, this is really useful, and this is what I'll be using. So your recent presentations will pop up in this list, and then you can click directly onto that. If they're not appearing there, there is also a browse content kind of button, so you can view all the things that are on your computer. When you clicked on the slides that you want to share, this is what will appear to you. It'll take a couple of moments just while the slides get ready, and then it should appear like this. So weirdly enough, the slides actually appear for attendees before the presenter themselves. If you're in a panel and there are other presenters, they will be able to see the other slides, but only you can control what the attendees see. So if you click through, it clicks through for them. They can't click through by themselves, but other presenters can skip ahead if you like. If you've got notes, they'll appear at the side there. It's just simply a matter of clicking through the buttons, through the arrows. When you've finished, you just click stop presenting, that'll take it down, and then the next person can share their own slides. We do like to share the slides with students afterwards, just so they can revisit when they're making applications and things. So if you can send them ahead, that would be really useful, just so they don't go anywhere other than on our kind of, what I was talking about earlier, our virtual learning environment on Blackboard. So only students can log in and access that. They can't download things. We also record the session so that they can revisit that as well. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on Teams. Hopefully some of you are familiar. Hopefully it wasn't too boring for those of you that are. Some people don't know about the PowerPoint Live thing, which is actually, can be quite useful. The thing I'd say is, if you're not using PowerPoint Live, then what you get is you share your slides, you share your screen, and we get the full image. So all of the PowerPoint tools around the outside, rather than just going straight to the screen. In terms of the one-to-one chats, these are optional, but we do quite heavily encourage them. They're not as popular as the webinars. I think they can be a little bit daunting for students, but we think they're a really valuable opportunity, and we know that employers really want to have those one-to-one chats. It shows students being a lot more highly engaged than at a fair, and really, really keen to apply. We kind of like people to give availability as much as they can, but understand that you can't put aside a whole day, and if you want different people's perspectives, then maybe an hour each in the day is something that would work. So how these can work is you either set them up as phone calls or video calls. If they're phone calls, there's not a huge amount you need to do. Students simply book the time slot that you have available, and then you get sent their details and you just call them at the right time. If they're set up as video calls, then you need to provide a guest link, so either a Teams link, Zoom link, whatever you use. And if you want, you can set a password and things. You can provide that in the kind of instructions. What I'd say is set up one meeting and have a lobby so that you can admit people at the right time. If you do want to have different people, like I was saying, some people running the solo webinars might want to have graduate perspective or recruiter perspective, things like this, then you can have different people. They all need their individual schedule, and you can provide a little description so the students know exactly who they're speaking to. If they've visited the webinar and they know who they want to ask questions to, then that's another useful feature. What happens when ahead of the one-to-one schedules is each recruiter is sent an email the night before with all of the bookings that they have. Students are able to book up until 11 a.m. the next day when the calls start. So once the calls start, students can't book any more appointments, so you will know your schedule for that day. So if you have got any free time that students haven't booked, then that is time back to you and you know exactly kind of what's going on. As the kind of details are sent to you the night before, it's probably best just to log in the morning of, just to check if there's been any more bookings, just so you've got like the full agenda. Hopefully I haven't rattled on too quickly or too much, but yeah, if anything's unclear, then please just feel free to come on mic or pop your questions in the chat and I'll answer them as best I can.
Thanks for that, Rebecca. I'd emailed a couple of times, and thanks for coming back on those respectively as well. I just want to check and see then. So, and I'm glad I've joined on because I'm trying to make sure that I don't go too generic on kind of application techniques and tips. So we should try and make it more about a little bit about us and what we like to see as a company, rather than CV do's and don'ts, for example. I'd
yes,
gauge that from the
yeah. I think it's kind of easier to open that up into Q&A, but I think the point of hearing from all the different employers is hearing their kind of individual perspective on it. And at the end of the day, you're here to kind of sell your organisation and your opportunities. So students will want to know what's kind of individual about you and what you're really looking for, so that they can kind of make the best application specifically to you.
That makes perfect sense. Fine. Good. So yeah, the first few minutes then, it sounds like it should be more a little bit of a, not a sales patter, but you know, this is us as a company, this is who I am, etc. Great. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's very helpful. Cool.
Rebecca, I think I asked yesterday, the webinar, when you're as part of a panel, are you expected to have more than one speaker or just the one person, or because it's only 10 minutes, so what's the...
Yeah, it's only 10 minutes. I mean, I would say you probably only need one speaker. If you wanted to have someone else there just as backup in case there's questions that you think might be directed at them, then that might be useful. But at the same time, you can always point students to the one-to-ones if they're going to be doing those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right.
Hi Becca, do we know in advance kind of how many students have booked onto the webinars?
We do. We kind of keep track of bookings, but I'd say they're not wholly accurate until the day. Students sometimes book, sometimes they don't, and they just turn up. So it's kind of difficult to gauge sometimes. And as it kind of gets closer to the event, so I have push notifications that go from the app, for instance, which will go 15 minutes before a webinar, and students can just click on that and join straight away. So that kind of thing isn't necessarily captured. So I wouldn't want to give figures ahead and then be kind of inaccurate, but you can see how many people attend, and we kind of keep track of the recordings as well. So if you want to keep a tally of the figures, then I'm happy to give them kind of at different points along the way, and after the fair.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was just curious more than anything.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Great.
If you don't, I'll stop recording just to give people a few more minutes in case they have any questions.